Well, you might be wondering what's going on, and I will tell you in just a minute if I can get this thing working here. Okay. So what you see here is a collection of all of the brushes and X-Acto knives and everything else that I've been using, and you'd say, why is all of this just spread out here on a paper towel under the camera? And the answer is, well, I wanted to get the stream started, but even though it's starting late, I managed to, let me show you, because this is an official Dice and Dungeons mug here. Okay. And you can see it's, okay, the camera's in the, well, yeah, there's more stories to tell. See this mug? It's a nice big mug. Holds probably like 12 ounces. Well, it had coffee in it, coffee and cream. And I knocked it over. Yeah, so you can see how it's now mostly empty? Well, the coffee that used to be in here before it was mostly empty got spread all over the work surface. Just, yeah. Under the microphone, all of these got kind of soaked, so I'm cleaning them off. So you get to watch me do that because I wanted to get the stream started, and that's what has to happen. So there's actually about 3 ounces left in here, and I'm going to drink it because it's almost certain to be knocked over. Again, how do I know that? Well, I know that because in the process of cleaning up, I knocked over the microphone and sent that sprawling, and then I had a roll of paper towels, and I've knocked that over twice. Yeah, we'll get rid of this here. Put it back here so when I knock it over, it hits the concrete floor and shatters. That'll be important. And then I got these out. These are pieces of the submarine that I'm working on. These are the tubes for the periscopes and radio antenna. And I set that down and then knocked one over. Fortunately, it didn't break, but yeah. So what makes today even more special, besides knocking over an entire mug of coffee on top of everything and making a huge mess, is that we're finally back after being gone for several days because, yeah, you know, that big storm that hit Michigan. Well, you know that we are in Michigan, and yes, we got hit with it. And so, yeah, I'll wipe these off on cameras because, you know, if we can't have relaxing painting, we can have relaxing cleaning paintbrushes. I will get around to doing something as soon as I finish cleaning these up, though. So the story I was going to tell before I got to tell you about how I knocked over a mug of coffee and made a huge mess, I have to say it could have been much worse in that it didn't spill here. Keep this up. Yeah. You've got this brand new cardboard work surface that I put in last week. Yeah, it didn't spill there. It spilled over to the side and got on the bottom of a whole bunch of bottles that I think I wiped off, but if not, well, that's just going to smell bad later, and then we'll know. Everything's probably going to smell like spoiled milk now for the remainder of forever. Anyway, yeah. So the story I was going to tell, the story of why there was no stream on Friday and Monday, was that our power went out when the storm hit Thursday night and stayed out for like 3.5 days. And when the power went out, we also didn't have any internet for that period of time. So definitely, you know, you couldn't stream anything, even if it were possible, because, you know, the power was out, so none of the lights, none of the stuff wasn't working, but the internet was out. It was kind of a unpleasant aspect of it, and that didn't come back until the power came back. And there was even over a day when we didn't even have cell phone service, and that was really weird. You know, I mean, unless you're in a very rural place like my brother lives, he doesn't have cell phone service because there's kind of like a little valley, and there aren't any nearby cell phone towers. Yeah, we were like incommunicado, literally, other than face-to-face, person-to-person. We couldn't be reached by landline because that's connected to our internet, voice over internet, you know. VoIP. Nobody says that, but that's what the acronym is. Yeah. So there were people trying to reach us because they knew the storm had come through and couldn't get through because none of the means of communication. You couldn't get texts, you couldn't get emails, couldn't get cell service, nothing. So it was kind of weird. What the storm did show was just how amazingly dependent we are on electricity. So in case anybody wants, you know, to get scared about stuff, what you can be scared about is what might happen if there was, you know, a real serious long-term power outage. Since we are really very, very dependent on that, we could start talking about, you know, doomsday scenarios based on that. I mean, everybody knows that a giant electromagnetic pulse or a solar mass ejection or something would definitely not be a good thing. You know, you read about the Carrington event, which didn't have much impact except on telegraphs because that's the only electrical stuff that was running at the time. And then think about what it would be like now. Yeah. Don't want to think about that. Anyway, we had that experience of, well, this is interesting. Yeah. Show you this is the Seiko, not a well-named sort of thing, but very detailed brush, and you can see the difference between a used one and a new one in terms of bristles. Yeah, they get worn out pretty quickly just from this. Find a different way of cleaning them, maybe. I've talked about that before, so that they don't get worn like that. So I'm almost done cleaning up here. But yeah, we were basically yeah, we couldn't stream on Friday, and the there, great. That's lovely. That coffee milky stuff got inside the pen cap. Well, I don't know. I can clean that out and try. So I wasn't able to stream Friday, and although the internet sort of came back on Monday, there's a lot of stuff to be done. Got to clean up, knock down trees, and spend. Yeah, it was pretty unpleasant, really. And it went down a long time. So I want to definitely need to thank all of the electrical service workers of various and sundry kinds that came from all over the country to help restore power in Michigan. And just as they're finishing up here, because a lot of stuff was still not quite totally finished, even now, throughout in certain parts of the state. All those folks don't even get a day off before they have to head down to Florida, where there is the need for thousands more. All the people who helped here in Michigan, basically, heading down to Florida, not as snowbirds this time, but as disaster recovery folks. going to be working really hard down there to restore their electrical service too, because the hurricane is hit yesterday and this morning. Reports are that it's not good. I guess it got up to like a Cat 4. They were predicting Category 3, but it might have actually hit Category 4 before it made landfall. And it's crossing the peninsula and heading up into Georgia as a Category 2 yet. And we'll have to see if it continues to weaken. Hopefully it will. But as it gets back out over the Atlantic on the eastern seaboard, there's a chance it could sustain itself. So that disaster is actually even, looking at it, it's actually even worse than the one we had here, probably. So again, thank you to all of the people who came to Michigan, were in Michigan, or came to Michigan over the weekend from Thursday night until now, trying to restore the electricity, the power to all the people who lost it. And thank you. I'm sure the people of Florida are going to be really thankful to have you all come down there too. But boy, you're going to be working for like 3 solid weeks. Well, 2 solid weeks at least, maybe 3. With hardly any break between the storm up here and the storm down there. So got things cleaned up. It probably won't smell like rotten milk at least for a couple of days, and who knows what. I'll just try to track it down and clean it up later. I'm a little bit reluctant to try to do anything today because, as I said, I started the day. Hi, Dual Blade. Thanks. Things are going okay now. You missed all the drama. Yeah, we missed Friday and Monday because the storm that rolled through here took our power out for almost 4 days. And with the power went the internet, and even on last Friday we even lost our cell phone service. So that was an adventure. And then as I was setting up this morning, knocked my 12 ounces of coffee with cream all over everything, and have now spent the last 20 minutes going through half a roll of paper towels and cleaning up. And hopefully I've got it all. So nothing has happened except recovering from a major disaster and then recovering from a minor disaster. And I've been knocking other things over since then too. So this might be a really exciting stream, as I'm afraid to touch anything that could either spill or break right now. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it came back late Sunday, early Monday, I guess, depending on what time of the night it was. But not really in time to get things going on Monday again. There was just too much else to do to recover. But yeah, now we're looking at as big or maybe even a bigger disaster down in Florida. That hurricane hit really hard along the west coast of Florida and up in what they call it, the Big Bend, where the Panhandle comes in. And then it's going to head up the eastern seaboard, spinning counterclockwise, causing all sorts of storm surges as it skims along. So I hope you're in a safe place and that you haven't had any issues. I'm going back to Submarine Wednesday, and I had been hoping that between last Wednesday and this Wednesday, I would get some things, small things done, so that I could actually do some assembly today. I wasn't able to do that, And as it turns out, that's probably a good thing because the assembly is really fiddly. There's all sorts of little parts that need to fit together just absolutely perfectly. I'll show you some of them in a minute as I uncover this. Yeah, so all these parts would need to fit together, and it would require a hand that isn't knocking things over. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, yeah, Michigan is between the Great Lakes, and we got pretty banged up. So, yeah, I'm glad that that storm didn't hit you as well. But in general, yeah, we even had, it's really unusual in Michigan, but the storm spawned 7 tornadoes across the middle of the state. And fortunately, we didn't get hit by a tornado. We did get hit by some pretty nasty wind, though, which took down trees and power lines and all sorts of stuff. And apparently cell towers. But for the most part, we're not in Tornado Alley. So these were like F1 tornadoes. I don't want to minimize them, but that's not like a giant F5 that covers 3/4 of a mile in width. Okay, this is all the submarine stuff I've been working on, wherever it feels like, because I've been really attentive to little detail. Okay, like in the galley here, you know, I painted the pots and the pans and did some outlining on the. Oh yeah, you're pretty lucky then. Some areas, you know. Even a place like 25 miles, 30 miles away from us didn't even get any rain. Okay. And then another place 20 miles away got hit by a tornado. It was a storm. So anyway, that's the kind of detail that I painted on the galley, which goes underneath the control room, which is what I've been working on forever. When it goes into the submarine, the decks stack like this. And then there's another one that goes up underneath here. And then they slide into the submarine hull, and you see them only from the side like that. So what I was working on last Wednesday, and I was really making pretty good progress once I got the cement to work. So little bulkheads that go places. See, this is the kind of cool little detail I get to paint. So I was making pretty good progress on getting this deck together. And what I was hoping to have accomplished, but I didn't. I really need to get these things out of the way, because just the way things are going today, something bad will happen. Bad meaning, I mean, not horrible, but spills or knocking over something. When this is inserted into the submarine, you can kind of see, you'll be able to see the bottom of this. And what I was planning to do was get everything in here except these tubes that I've been working on that hold the periscope and so on. So what I was hoping to have done that I didn't get done is there's tiny little chairs that go there, and there. I was going to get those cemented in, and I was going to get out the plastic putty. It's a filler. And I was going to fill in all the holes and actually get them sanded down. And I didn't get any of that done because of things. So, oh yeah, the little bits on this are, you know, like these little dial faces. You can even, I don't know if I can get it to focus, probably not. But I was even able to paint them white, but also get black paint on so you can see the little dials and digits and stuff. Kind of happy about how this is turning out. So I built one of these. This is one of several kits that I bought. Authentic 1960s vintage Renoir cutaway submarine. Actually, I should show you. I'm going to be pulling pieces out of this box. So I'll be right back. And the more I get to talk about this, the less I have to do. And not doing things that today is a good thing. Okay, yeah. So I get to talk about this today. So this is, it's very large. The Polaris launching nuclear sub George Washington. Okay. This is a 1960s vintage kit. I actually bought 3 of these because usually when you find them, they've been started or there's pieces missing. Or sometimes, as I've been finding, the pieces are very, very badly manufactured. So I've been poking through 3 of these kits in order to get 1 kit worth of usable parts. And I actually built one of these when I was like in 7th grade, when they first came out. And what I know is that I did not do this kind of painting. In fact, I think I did hardly any painting on it at all. And what that meant is I was able to put it together much more quickly. And before I started this, when I was painting miniatures, like this guy, minis for our D&D campaign, I used to complain about the detail. I'll show you another one. Like this guy. Complain about the detail, like the edging on the armor and stuff. And then I started painting these bits on the submarine, and it was, wow, the minis are big compared to this. Anyway, it's actually it's taking me longer to build this model than it took to build the real submarine. Apparently it was like 250 days or something. They built the entire submarine, a nuclear-powered missile-launching submarine, in under a year. At least they were able to launch it that quickly. I doubt that it was operational yet. I'm sure that took a little bit longer. But, yeah, anyway. So, I decided that when I was going to build this one, I was going to... Oh, great. Yeah. I was going to, really do the detail. And so I have been. This is what a box of parts looks like. This kit is the one I'm actually building. Probably like 85% of the parts that I've been using came out of this kit, and the rest from the other 2. And depending on how things go, when I've got just a few little things to do today, I'm going to be rummaging through this box because I'm moving on from the control deck and the gyro deck. Okay, I'm going to be moving on to getting this bulkhead. This bulkhead's already painted, this one here. And I did that one because I need it in order to fit all this stuff into the hull. This has to be in place to hold it in place and to make sure it's in the right location. But what I get to work on next is the missile deck. And the missile deck has 16 missile tubes, one of which actually has a spring in it. And the spring launches this little missile up through, assuming everything is lined up. It shoots it like 3 or 4 inches above the submarine. Anyway, it's kind of cool. So what I'll be doing maybe later today is finding all of these parts the decks, the hatch for the missiles, the missile tubes, which come in halves like that. There's these bulkheads, and then these machinery things that go into the launching area. This looks like it should be really simple and straightforward, but I know it won't be, because... Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll tell a little story about this submarine, but these missile tubes are in halves, and what I know is that the halves are very poorly molded, so they're not going to line up when they're glued together. So what I'll be doing is finding all the halves, and at some point cementing them all together, and then I'll have to be filing and sanding them down to get rid of the seams, the seam marks, and making sure that they actually look like cylinders before I can prime and paint them. And then I need to make sure that they'll fit into the bottom deck and through the middle deck and come in contact with the top deck, and especially this one lines up with these holes so that the missile can launch. Anyway, I don't have very much painting to do or assembly to do, so I should be able to get to picking out these parts. So the George Washington was actually a prototype of the ballistic launching submarines. It was the very first one. It was one of the very early nuclear-powered submarines as well. The first one, I think, was called the Nautilus, believe it or not, which was more of a research vessel, a proof of concept kind of thing. But the George Washington was the prototype launching thing, and the Polaris missiles were single warhead missiles that you'd carry 16 of them in those tubes, and they were set to be launched from underwater, not very far, like maybe 30 or 40 feet down, enough so that the whole submarine was submerged. And they were kind of like the torpedoes. They used compressed air pretty much to shoot them up to the surface, where the fuel would then ignite and take off. And if you've seen old newsreels of some of those launches, they came out of the water not too terribly vertical. Sometimes they were tilted a little bit, and then they would, the engine would ignite, and then they'd shoot off. But it was a big deal, because it then created the third part of our nuclear triad deterrence. The Polaris missiles actually didn't last very long. They were replaced fairly quickly by Poseidons, which carried multiple warheads, which made them much more deadly and nasty. Okay, these tiny little things there, those are chairs. Okay, there's 6 of them, plus this weird one that's on a pedestal. That one on the pedestal is the one that looks through the periscope. And these little chairs need to go into these holes. And I do that by holding them on with a tweezers, hopefully, but sometimes they get away, and I'm going to do this in the box, because if they do get away, I would like to be able to find them again. It's not a total disaster if I don't, because, as I said, I've got 3 kits. And so I can, for example, if I lose one of these little chairs, like this one goes here, to lose one, okay, I need to cement that in. If I were to lose one, I can pull them out, clean them up, paint them, the other kits. I would prefer not to do that. I would like to just get this done. But once I'm going to do this first, and I get those in place and let them set for a bit, and then I will get out the plastic putty and fill in the holes under the deck, so that next week I can sand it down and paint it, and then it'll be ready to go in. The other place I'm going to put plastic putty is, if you can see it there, there's this little gap between this piece and that piece where they come together. Is I'm going to try to fill in that gap in the corner there, just so because it's supposed to be one solid piece, you know, in the submarine, and then I'll be able to paint that to match. So this is the kind of stuff that requires a fairly steady hand, which I do not have today. So we'll see how it goes. The way I'm going to cement these in is I'm going to put some cement on a piece of paperboard, and then I'm going to, because I can't get the cement into those holes very easily, is what I'm going to do is just touch the little extension there to the cement, and then very carefully insert it into the hole without getting cement anywhere other than where it belongs. That's the plan, and I will see how that works. Anyway, Submarine Wednesday is just one day a week, and when we actually stream on Mondays and Fridays, which is what's supposed to be happening, when that actually does happen according to schedule, doing minifigs and dungeon tiles for our D&D campaign, because Dice and Dungeons is all about D&D. Yeah, were you doing like some genealogy work? Which is also really kind of cool and interesting. Is that just getting absorbed? Yeah. So that's not working. The cement just, it's supposed to sit up on the surface so I can dip into it. But that didn't work, so I need to find something else. As you can tell, what's the word? Discombobulated. That's a really good word that actually describes the situation today. Is things are discombobulated because of the power outage that wiped out the weekend and things I was planning to do between then and now. And that's... How am I going to do this? Because I have all sorts of little plastic surfaces I could put the cement on, but the cement will dissolve those. So I need metal, and I have some, but it's painted, and it will dissolve the paint, and that will make a mess. Unprepared today. Yeah, that's really neat. And you were able to track them down? Are you doing like online research with digital copies of things, or did you actually go and look through old licenses? Just had a loss here. I need a flat metallic surface. I know, I'll do this. One of the many universal tools, putty knife. And let's see if it works. Let's see if I can get a little puddle. What I want to do is create a little puddle of cement. One of these chairs. Just get the end of it. I'm just going to get cement on the end of it. And then I want to get it into the hole. Okay, now the hole is a lot bigger than the hole is a lot bigger than the little prong, little thing that goes into it. I'm hoping that the cement makes contact with the edges of the hole. And creates a little bit of a bond. Okay. Yeah, that one gripped. And then it helps if they're actually vertical, so I'm dinging around and touching them to make sure that they're like not tilted over. It's not so much that that it looks bad. Okay, so that's how those chairs work. I know you have to really be careful because, you know, we don't think about paper being, well, people don't handle paper that much anymore, much less old paper. And so they're not always aware of just how fragile this stuff can be. Okay, this last chair is going to be a little bit of a challenge. It goes way in here in, I think, what's the officer's wardroom, basically. I'm pretty sure that's where the officers get to stay because it's right near the control room. And because the bunks are only 2 high instead of 3 high. So they get a chair. They get a chair in their room. It's pretty good. And a sink. For some reason, there's a sink. I don't know if you can see it way over here, right next to the bunk. And it looks like it's set up so that it's right where you would smash your head into it when you got up in the morning. That's on the paint. I'm going to have to touch that up with green paint, it looks like. As I'm looking at it, it looks like it's not just shiny. It looks like that those edges of the chair are in fact not painted. So I'm going to let that set for a bit. And then I'm going to have to get tiny little drops of green paint out and touch that up. And I manage, and it's right where it's really obvious. Right. These 3 chairs go next to this control panel here along the wall. And they're big chairs. Whoever gets to sit in here gets like real big comfy chairs. I don't think they're recliners. I don't think they're reclining chairs, but yeah, that didn't work. Larger chairs. It should have been like one of the easiest ones to put in, and it turned out not to be. Here's a vertical. Looks like there's a flaw in the paint on a couple of these. At least I know what color it is, so I'll be able to touch up the paint. One of the surprising things of I'm just not going to say it. If I say it out loud, it'll be a jinx thing, you know? And I don't need a jinx thing right now. We're being quiet at the moment, but it's great that they have records going back that far, and it's impressive that you have access to them, that you can get into the archives. So they make you do things special. Do you have to wear like rubber, like not rubber, like white gloves, white cotton gloves or anything to go through them? You have a gravestone in your basement. Of a relative, or just like a gravestone? It was a gravestone in a cemetery and people were like vandalizing it or something? I mean, it makes sense that if there was that kind of stuff going on, that they would take it out of the cemetery and put it in a safer place. Cement, you know, it kind of grabs right away, but then sometimes it takes a while for it to, they say like 24 hours really. But I think because I'll just be barely touching that with a brush, that I'll be able to do the touch up on that chair sooner than that. No, really? And so, yeah, probably yeah, like tempting fate or something, right? Let's mess with the witch's grave. Maybe she'll come and haunt us, right? That's really sad, really. I mean, it's interesting to have a historical story like that associated with it, when people just mess with it just because. It's just really too bad. But it's probably a wise thing to do then to keep it from being vandalized. So this weird thing, okay, and I don't know how this I can't really attach this until these tubes are in place. Supposedly goes in this little hole here. The eyes. So I'm going to have to do some modification of it, but apparently the periscope controls are elevated. Oh, really? The whole cemetery has become a wetland area. Did they relocate a lot of the graves, or is it just sort of swamped? that can happen sometimes in lowland areas. That kind of thing would occur. I'm going to let this set, because if I mess with it too soon, it will be a problem. And the paint I'm going to be using is this dark green. I'll be doing that eventually after this has set a little bit, but I'm going to put that over here, cover it up so that minimize the chances of a disaster. And then these are the tubes, they're upside down, into which the periscopes and the radio antenna slide. And this is the periscope, and you can tell because there's a viewing port and like little handles on it. And after I get the second coat of paint on here, I will be making those black so that you can tell it's the periscope. But I want them to have a really nice, smooth, almost metallic look, painted metal look. So I've just been using a large brush and putting a thin layer on. So I'll probably need like at least 2, and we'll see, maybe 3 coats. When I've used this paint before on things that were painted metal, I ended up, I think, putting 3 coats on. I'm trying to find the right brush because these are the brushes that got that managed to get covered in spilled coffee earlier today. Yay. We got a whole bunch of these that end up getting used way too much. This one's about ready to retire. I think they cost like 10 or 15 cents a piece, and I've got, I don't know, I think there's like 8 or 10 of them around. So pretty soon, when they don't get clean, paint builds up on them and they become unusable, and this one's getting real close to that. Anyway, yeah, Dice and Dungeons is about Dungeons and Dragons, and our campaign streams on Twitch 3 Sundays a month at 2 Eastern, what is daylight time now. The campaign has been going on for over a year and is going to continue forever because it's a really complicated world that we live in. Lots of adventures, retail shopping. We actually have a lot of retail shopping. Magic shops are always a great episode. The pursuit of the perfect pretzel is another theme that we have going on, in addition to combat with demons and monsters and dragonkin and occasionally a gnoll, I think, at least early on. But invite everybody who's listening to this to join us on our D&D campaign, which was what Dice and Dungeons is really all about. And after I put a coat of paint on these, I'll actually show you the dungeon tiles. These nice long campaigns are great, aren't they? Especially, if you get a group of players who really get along well together, and a DM that, is pretty creative. Well, let's not say creative, flexible, because no matter how much you prepare for a session, you can always count on your players to do something unexpected. Looking forward to our next session as well. We got stormed out this weekend, so we're going to be catching up this week, maybe doing 2 sessions just to try to catch up. So what do you play? I am a Furbolg fighter. combination of DPS and tank, and am supported by a Tabaxi Bard and a Changeling Druid. Sorry, the core group, and we were just, I think, a ranger, some sort of ranged weapons user has joined us. That sounds like really cool. In previous campaigns, playing a cleric was one of my favorite things. I really liked playing a cleric. It was weird. Like you could be almost neutral, because, as I would say sometimes, the power to heal is also the power to destroy. People thought that was a little bit weird for a cleric, but it's true. So my cleric played largely a healer, but because of certain spells was able to be really quite useful in combat situations as well. I was accused once of being creepy. I don't think I was, but I guess a cleric can get creepy. Why is this paint so thick? I'm going to leave brush marks because it, I'm going to have to thin it a little bit, I think. And I'll also need a third coat, because I'm putting really thin coats on, because I don't want, again, just to try to minimize brush marks. Thin coats. Several thin coats work better than a thick coat. I have, when I'm doing like the bottoms, like the ceiling or something, or a floor, I'll put on a thicker coat to reduce the number of coats. But for these, I want it to be, well, we'll see. If this dries soon enough, I'll be able to put a third coat on yet today and get them done. Double pirate trick. So, are the other players also part of the family? Or do you just play one of the characters and then make reference to your family? Okay, that's kind of neat. Is to have your characters have kind of a family relationship going. It helps hold them together so your rogue doesn't go rogue, for example. So are you like, you're a sea elf, and so you're a classic sea pirate. Have you captured any ships that were full of good booty? Or do you have one of those mean DMs who say, you have captured the ship, you found 8 silver and 4 copper? We have that kind of thing going on sometimes. It's like, yay, great. We're all so rich now. Oh. Yeah, that's why they call them rogues, right? So did you have to take your own rogue out for going rogue, or did your rogue depart based on some sort of combat that you had gotten into? I need to put this somewhere where I won't knock it over. And well, it was good that it was just a solo jump. Didn't come back out the other side, huh? Just lost. Okay, you get to watch me make an attempt to put a little bit of thinner in here because this paint is coming out too viscous to use. Careful with this though, because I don't want too thin, then it becomes unusable in the other direction. Lovely. Yep. Got to see me. No, what I need to do now is knock this over, preferably onto all the models there. That's the kind of thing there. I just cleaned it up and then set it down and did that. That's just really a roguey thing to do, isn't it? So was this one of the players who did this? Are they now out of the game, or were they able to come back as another character? Sometimes, if someone has other obligations, it's a nice dramatic way to leave the game. But if they were just dumb and killed their character, well, then the rest of the group needs to decide whether they can come back as something else or not. Oh, lovely. From rogue to paladin. I played a paladin once for like 2 sessions, or 3, and I was I did the paladin thing too much, It's kind of a John Cleese kind of thing. It's like, I will fight evil. I must go find evil and destroy evil. I must find evil, and basically just wandered around looking for evil. And the other players and the DM got really sick of it and sent me off to look for evil. That was the end of that paladin. The paladin did have some interesting adventures, most of which were just kind of stupid. It was not the brightest paladin, I have to admit. My character was not a really smart paladin. But that's quite a change from rogue to paladin. Did you allow the paladin to come back at the same level that the rogue was, or did it have to start over? Boy, that's pretty nasty. So this player has had quite a lot of experience. Have the rest of you stayed alive for the whole campaign? Oh, that's nice. So yeah, so somehow the storyline, you met a replacement for a party member. So what hit a sorcerer for 72 damage? It was like a giant fireball or something. That's pretty nasty. I mean, that's real bad. So you've got one player who has lost 2 characters. Okay. I think the moral of that story is, yeah, that can be pretty nasty. Well, having had that experience of watching this player keep losing their characters, is I wouldn't stand next to them. And what I would be doing is making an effort to always be like on the other side of a wall or something. And I'm touching up this chair that somehow didn't, maybe the paint rubbed off. I don't know. It wasn't painted right the first time. But the side that shows, of course, that's our campaign, we almost lost 2 characters. And it was really dumb. It wasn't even a combat situation. We were attempting, well, it was an escape. We were running away from a certain loss. Okay. Sometimes you just go run away. That's the best thing you can do, right? So we're attempting to run away. And there was a small boat out in the harbor. And the plan was to, I always look at things from different angles. Yeah, the chairs are not vertical here. So the plan was that the bard, who had some sort of cape of teleportation, I think that the bard and one willing participant were able to teleport. I forget the numbers, so I'll make them up, the exact numbers, but able to teleport like a long distance. It was like 300 feet, or I'll just say that, 400 feet. They were able to go 400 feet. And the boat they were trying to get to was 200 yards away. And 200, of course, is less than 400. The character and the player both were not doing arithmetic very well. So teleported out and landed 200 feet away from what they were trying to get to, because the conversion of feet to yards was not in their favor. So who does your tanking? The barbarian? The fighter barbarian? I found that playing a fighter, you always end up getting in front, getting beat up, but as a fighter barbarian, which is going to hopefully do enough damage quickly enough to survive the battle. Yeah, it's always you walk in front. Follow me, you go first. So as a cleric, are you primarily in a healing, like keeping the party alive role, or are you able to participate like in crowd control and dealing damage as well? Just as I put the paint away, I discover yet another flaw. Yeah, there's always this thing of, looking at things from different angles, and so I'm looking at this. I think that when I painted these, they've been stored for months now because they were some of the first things I painted. Some of the paint just kind of rubbed off. But I can't see close up. Yeah, what are your major damage spells? The cleric, I got stone shape. I found that to be a really pretty useful thing. Being able to make walls and trap people with, behind stone. Fighting a group of creatures once. I'm not sure why the DM did this, but they were actually part stone. Oh, yeah. That's pretty good. Is that like, can you do like a area of effect with that, or is it a single target? Okay, so that's pretty, yeah. So if you're in the right place, that can be pretty nasty. A nice range too. It's really good, unless you're also doing combat with mobs that have a long range. You can stand off or even get like a preemptive thing going. Okay, well, I got the chairs in. You can see them now. They are mostly standing up straight. They're in the places where I want them. And what I'll need to do, well, there's that. Yeah, that's the thing with some of those things. It's like, I cast Fireball, and then you wipe out your tank because they were right there. Okay, so what I need to do is let that cement set for just a bit yet, because I don't want to mess it up, but I'm getting a little impatient, wanting to get this done. And my impatience is leading me to want, if you can see all these divots on the bottom, where all these pegs went into the slots, is I want to fill all of those in with the plastic putty and then sand the bottom. It's a fair amount of sanding. There's also these little mold marks, these circles, and especially these are the ones up in front here. This is the front. The ones here, those will show. And I didn't sand them down earlier because I knew I was going to have to sand this whole thing down with plastic putty set. So I'm going to let this be for just a bit yet. And then plastic putty the bottom and that one little seam in that wall. Let's see if these are drying enough to put a third coat on. Now this paint dried pretty quickly, so I'm going to give that now slightly thinned paint a stir and get the third and I'm going to say final coat on these tubes, periscope and radio antenna tubes. And those will be ready for the great installation, hopefully next Wednesday. I will not be knocking over coffee cups and paper towel rolls and everything else. Hopefully I won't be doing that. And I'll have enough steady confidence that I'll be able to do some assembly. So just so everybody knows, again, the storm wiped out our power and internet, for a while cell phone coverage over the weekend. That's why there wasn't any relaxing painting on Friday or Monday. I'm actually going to be ending early today. I'll probably go until at least another hour. Did that clock stop again? I just changed the battery. Sorry, there's always something. Yeah, okay. Well, the minute hand is correct, but the hour hand isn't. It is apparently 11:20, and the clock on the wall very much says 10:20. That threw me off. But I'll be going in about another hour. Okay. So has there been are you in like a quest? Okay, that your group is being hired to track down and hunt this vampire? Or have you just sort of heard rumors about it? And you're out to find out if it's real, and if so, get rid of the vampire? Are you doing this on behalf of a terrorized village who will reward you greatly by giving you, I don't know, 2 copper and an apple? Because that's all they got. We haven't run into a vampire in ours. We run into demons. Not pleasant. Yeah. That was kind of a foolish thing. Don't... Unless you've got a really good reason, just don't start random fights with parties of people. But, having been attacked first, you now have a good reason to go after it. So what do you know about this vampire? Are they like super high level, evil, just careless? This final coat's gonna look okay. Situation here is that I've got these trifocals in my glasses, and the seeing up close part, if you've ever seen Seeing people with bifocals, they're always reading like this, right down through there, because the the old cult of death. So doesn't that send up some like red flags, like, oh, you belong to a cult, you're not just on your own? If we hunt down this vampire, we'll be essentially attacking the cult. And now we need to deal with an entire cult of death and undeath. Now we're going to be running into necromancers, probably undead hordes, zombies and skeleton warriors. I don't know. I'd be a little cautious about going after this vampire, unless he knew more about the cult. You know, where their secret lair was or something to give you an advantage. I'm speaking from experience, because in our campaign, we're also dealing with a cult. This is a cult that is attempting to, it's like an interdimensional kind of thing, I guess. I'm not really sure. It's attempting to take over the world we live in. You can hear them. Sometimes the microphone filters out some noises, sometimes it doesn't. You got dogs upstairs barking away. Okay, I think I'm just going to throw this one away. I'm not even going to bother trying to clean it. Whoever used it last didn't clean it, so time for it to retire. All right, let's recap where we are on the submarine here. Sorry, I'm looking over to the chat screen here. Okay, that's good. So the goddess, okay, so if you kill a cult member, the goddess of the cult is not likely to come after you. Hopefully, you know, that's true, because dealing with gods and goddesses is sometimes a lose-lose proposition. It's not to be recommended. We were playing a campaign once, and I have no idea why this happened. We were having just a great old time, wandering around, doing little quests and things, and then somehow got mixed up in a battle between demons and angels. Seriously. And they both decided that we were on the other side. And that was pretty much the end of that. I guess the DM just got tired of us. I'm not sure what happened, but it was a lot of fun until the demons and angels both decided to come after us, and there was nothing that could be done. Okay. Plastic putty. I'm going to take a chance and hope that all of these chairs at least are settled enough so that I can apply plastic putty. There are a lot of openings on the bottom here. And this stuff shrinks a little bit as it dries. There you go. That's a good goddess. You know, basically, I've got cult members, and their main purpose is to entertain me. If they're destroyed, well, I'll just get some more, because, you know, people like to join cults. So I learned a lesson here that if you try to level this stuff, it shrinks, and then it hasn't filled the holes. So what I end up doing is putting way too much on, which means a lot more sanding. But, you know, it's plastic putty, so it's not real hard. It's not like auto body putty or something. And if I then use a good, nice flat sanding block, even though this is really messy, okay? I mean, if you looked at that, you'd say that was not really well done. Yeah, it's okay for our purposes here. And then I do want to be a little bit careful here because I don't want to have to sand in the corner. I'm going to take little bits of this stuff, toothpick. This is the seam between the two pieces, that just the seam there that bothers me, and I want to fill that in. Don't want like big blobs of this stuff there. I want just a tiny bit so that the seam doesn't show. Oops. Put some paint on it so that it's the same color, right? And there, I got it on the top of the locker. I didn't want it there. Greater point than the toothpick. There. I'm going to try to do, I might be able to do this, get a little piece of paper towel, because I got some on a painted surface where I don't want it. So I'm going to be attempting to wipe it off. I might be succeeding. Okay, so now there is no seam. This putty is really close to the color that is painted anyway, but I'll probably put a tiny bit of paint on it just to be sure. And that just looks, it just looks way better without the gap. This keeps poking at the wizard, like little damage, little damage, little damage, or like making fun of, doing a little ridicule bits. Okay, so I got that seam filled in. I might put a little bit more right at the top. Don't know if that's going to show It's kind of weird. It's like right up against the top of the bulkhead here. There, that's better. When I put this into the submarine, these bulkheads go right up against the hull. Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's really lovely. Like taunting your wizard in their dreams. That's pretty fun. So these things are supposed to fit right into the hull and be right up against it, but there's a chance that they'll actually be a little too big, and then it won't fit, and then I'll have to like sand them down. And that's always a real tetchy kind of thing. Okay, so this deck, I'm going to say now, is done, other than the tubes that go here that hold the periscopes and the radio antennas. And those can't go in until this is inserted into the hull, because they need to line up with them they're already installed in the sail of the hull. So they slide into, there's a channel here, they slide into the channel, and then they line up, and the periscopes and radio antenna rods, I guess I'll call them, actually hold it in the right place. And I'm not going to use the model cement for this. I'm going to use contact cement because it gives me a little more leeway to work with without like melting all the plastic and the paint and everything. And I've used it before with some success. So the chairs are mostly vertical in good position. I've touched up the paint on them. They look all right. I know these edges are a little scabby looking, but these actually get painted dark gray hull color later because it's cut away. And I'm going to put this away, like away so that I'm not hurting it. And the next thing I need to do is start finding parts. So there's going to be an exciting episode now, an exciting, almost hour. We'll see how long it takes, of rooting through a box, maybe more than one box, to find the parts for the next compartment of the submarine, which is where the missile tubes are. Put my glasses back on for this. I think that'll work. So, does the rest of your party enjoy the taunting of your wizard? Or are you all, like, sympathetic and helpful? I'm going to take this, because I'm concerned about knocking things over and breaking them. And I'll put it away on a side. I'll be right back. That was good. I didn't drop it. Been that sort of day. As I said, recovered from the storm and spilled my coffee mug, which was too bad because it was a really good cup of coffee. Yeah, that's pretty fun. I'm glad you're all dealing with that with good humor. Okay, there's a lot of parts here. There's a bulkhead I need to find. Two, actually. And then the side piece that goes between them. This is the section here is actually where the reactor goes later. That'll be fun. And then I need to find all of the halves of these 16 tubes, including the special one that gets spring-loaded. The problem that I've been running into is that these decks tend to get warped. And that's what I've had to go digging through the other models to find decks that aren't warped. Anyway, this is what I'm looking for. And this is the box of stuff in which I am trying to find it. And as I said before, it looks pretty straightforward, and and in some ways it is, but the problem is that these missile tubes are two parts, and they're not going to line up when they're put together. I know the seams will show, and they might even be misaligned a little bit, and that means that after they're cemented together to form tubes, I'll be doing a lot of sanding and stuff. Now what we have here, this is a bag of parts. These bag of parts were pulled off of the trees. So if you look at this, there's still a couple of missile tubes on the tree. This is in fact the one, that's kind of cool. This is the one that gets spring-loaded. It's this one here. And those are still on the tree, and that's pretty nice. And then I need this little thing called 66A, which is probably one of these little pipes. Hopefully it's one of these. I need a magnifier now. Nope. It's 90, 91, 81, 82, 82. That is, none of those are the one I'm looking for. Is that it? Yep, 66A there. So this, and this are pieces I need, and I'm going to cut these off carefully with an X-Acto knife to minimize the amount of rework I need to do later. And the other special parts are these things here. It's like a mechanical control panel, some sort of thing like a tank. 64 and 66, and those don't appear to be on here anywhere. So they'll be later. I can. This is the hull. The hull of the submarine. Look at this actually. You can see it's pretty big. Goes up against it and it folds down. It's hinged. One hinge is broken off. I'll have to repair that. But right now that gets set aside as I dig through here to find parts. This is that's the very bottom. Okay, that's number 62 here. It's the very bottom, and it is not warped. So that's really good. So we'll save that. So I've got this and this missile tube and that little pipe so far. Here are, some more halves of missile tubes. Some of the halves that have not been pulled off. It's not yet been pulled off. That's good. Okay, this is not good. This is this part, the very, very top part. This is a part that's really important because it actually goes on the hull of the submarine, and as you can see, it is warped. It's great when your group actually puts up with that kind of thing and finds it entertaining. So this actually goes into the hull of the submarine, and it being warped, I'll look at the other kit to see if it's not quite as badly warped. But I might have to trade out a part. And the same is true here. This is the middle deck, and you can see it's very much bent. So it's possible to straighten these things by making them a little warm and bending them. But right now, unfortunately, I will have to look to see if these two decks, and the other kits are less bent. What I'd like to find are the bulkheads. Okay, this bulkhead here is this piece, and it is okay, including the control panel. Very, very complicated control panel with all sorts of buttons and dials and stuff. That's going to be a pain. So this is usable. Okay, this piece here, there's not much on it, it's just a hatch. That's usable. And this goes this way. This has got, a lot of cleaning up to do. Oh, it's a work. Okay, this is pretty clever. This is a work area, and there's, if you look at it, there's all sorts of like wrenches and hammers and pliers and stuff hanging on the surface there, and that'll be fun to paint. So there's that. What I need are these two pieces, 66 and 64, and that hatch. So I'm going to just go through what's in the box here. Yeah, so tube. Routing for pieces. Okay. So they're not in the box, which means that they're hopefully in this bag. I'm going to put this aside, and we're going to go digging through here and see how many pieces I can find. Oh, sorry, I need to check something. Thank you. And please come back on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 or more or less until 2 more or less. We've got Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. And Mondays and Fridays, dungeon tiles and minifigs that are used in our campaign. So thanks. Have a lot of fun with your session. I really enjoyed having you join us today. And yeah, come back. Sub Wednesdays or any other time that we're streaming. I need to find something in this box. Okay. So, Dual Blade 77, have a really good session. I hope you have fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Cut these off so I can start counting pieces. You give me 15, what will become 15 missile tubes. Okay. When I cut these off, I like to leave plastic on them, because if I break them off, they could break into the part, and then it has to be filled in and sanded, and that's hard to get right. But if I leave extra plastic on, it's pretty straightforward process to be able to sand it down. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is cut these off and leave extra plastic on it that I can just file and sand to match. Contour of the part itself. So there. This one is this here. And like I said, these are unfortunately warped. So I have to, before I go too terribly far, I'll be looking for those pieces. in the other kits. So I've got this bulkhead here, this part that goes between them, this bulkhead here, the base here. Okay, I found that pipe that's on this, along with the missile tube that fires. So I'm going to save that carefully with the warp parts. Cut these off. You know, that one came off on its own. There are going to be 30 halves. 30 missile tube halves. Oh, this is good. This is the top there. That's number 56. That's an important part. Okay. Very important part. That's the top of the hatch of the firing missile tube. It goes here. And it eventually lifts up so that the missile can sort of fire. Be careful cutting this off. I don't want to... yeah. And then there's a bunch of these that are already broken off in this bag. So I'm going to be pulling those out and counting them up. Hopefully there will be enough of them. Find out. There's a lot of them that came off. I'm just going to reach in and pull them out. There's a lot. There's a bunch of little pieces in here that I don't want to lose. But you can begin to see why this is going to be a thing. Yep, that's this. It's got a little hole for the pipe in it. And this one might be... Is this number 66? No. It's that, but it's not. Really tiny important pieces in there. Well, this, in case you're curious, this is the missile. This is one of the Polaris missiles. There's two of them with the kit. What this is about. This looks like another piece of fuse. It looks like another piece of the hatchway there. I wonder if it goes underneath. But it looks like a missile hatch. I'm a little confused by that. But I will keep it here. And what I need is number 66. This might be it. Yeah, okay. So this one goes here. This is the number 66, and then that little pipe goes between them on these holes. Hunting for parts. So far it's going. So I'm going to turn these over because there's two kinds. There's ones with the little prongs. Those little prongs fit into the little holes, supposedly like this, and then you get a tube. And that's not too bad a fit. So these all need to be cemented together and then sanded down so that the seams, because no matter what you do, you always see the seams don't show. There. This is fun counting, isn't it? This is like Sesame Street. 5 missile tubes. 5. Sorry, couldn't resist. 6. 8. Getting close to, yeah. 9. 10 out of 15. Just water, thankfully. 12. 13. And this is up here. Yes, 15 to the 15 missile tubes, and on so I'll put that away. And on this one we have the missile launching one and the pipe. Oh, another important thing is I have the spring that's in the box, but this number 13 here is the launching lever. Need to find the launching lever. Is it in here? Then on my lap so I can drop it in here in this little box, which opens this way. There's the spring. That's important. And that is the broken propeller. That's important. And that is the broken hinge. So these bits are really important. That's why I put them in a little box. And I need the launching lever. And I don't see it in the bag here. Not, some pipes and other kind of fittings, but it must still be on one of the trees. So I need to go back into the box of parts. Find the launching lever. Just need. Yeah, I'm doing things a little bit dangerously here. I'm going to actually set this box on top of these missile tubes. Hopefully that won't be a problem. This. Different kit? I'm confused. This looks like it goes on the top. Definitely this. That's definitely this. I don't know what this is. This might belong to a different kit. This is... also the top of the submarine. And I had that one, the hatch, that I didn't quite understand, the flat one. That looks like it fits on there. I'm not sure what this is about. Because the top of the tops of these are bubbled. And this is number 63. Definitely 63. This one is number 60. I'm going to keep it out. I'm not sure what's going on with that part. Yeah, I need to find the launch lever. And it's a part that looks like this. It doesn't... oh, and it's clearly not a submarine part. In the sense of looking like it's part of a submarine. If I can't find it, I do have two other kits that I can scavenge. So far, I've been pretty lucky about some of these parts are confusing. I guess as I move back, we'll see how they work. I'm definitely not finding the launch lever. Very strange. And kind of annoying. Because so far I've been really lucky and I've been able to find, with this kit, even if not all the parts are usable, I've been able to find them all. Sorry for my silence there, but yeah, just kind of odd. I could have sworn that part before. Yeah, here, I'll just show this to you. This is where I'm a little confused. Is that this is definitely the part that goes here, but this one is really confusing because this is the hatch that goes on there, and this is for missile tubes. But it doesn't belong to this. I think it belongs to the, I think it belongs to a different submarine. I think it belongs to the Andrew Jackson. But I don't think, that's not it either. I'm really baffled. I don't understand what's going on with this particular part. I'm going to put it in the bag here. Is this it? Ah, okay. I didn't recognize it at first. There it is. This is the missile launching thing. There we go. Okay, I'm going to do a real quick inventory of the parts to make sure I've got everything I need. And then I'm going to very carefully take care of those and put this away. And then look in the other kits to see if I can find not warped parts. All right, so this bulkhead is already painted and ready to install with all the rest of that. This bulkhead has a very surprisingly well molded control panel on it. That goes there. This is the part that goes between them. And then this is this bulkhead here. It goes there like that. A deck goes here. And this fits in like this. Okay. And on the other side is a whole lot of detail that has to do with the machine room. And this piece needs a lot of work. Not so much on this side, but on this side before it's usable. So there's that. Okay. This is the bottom. That's good. And I've got the launch probe mechanism here. I've got these two parts and the submarine hatch that goes onto the top of the deck. And I know where that pipe is because it's on this that I haven't cut off yet. And what I need is, I need one of these little containers. Little parts, 66, 64, 56, and 13 are going to go in here and into here. Number 66A will be joining them. And I'm going to put 15 pairs of these in here so that they're not flopping all over the place. Actually, what I'm going to do is get 2, and I'm going to put 15 of these. 6, 12, 13, 14, 15. Those are the ones that get into, and then these have the little probes on them. It's 15 of those. Okay. Bottom. And I'm going to cut these off now, just so I can move this out of the way, as I continue to describe in great detail tiny little bits of what I'm kind of doing. Okay, this one, you can see that when it goes together, there's a hole in the bottom there. That's where this launch mechanism and spring go. Okay, so this is a special one, and I'm putting it in there with those bits. And then this is 66A. And you can see this needs a lot of cleaning up. It's got flashing all around it, as well as where that is. And I'm putting that in there also. Hopefully I won't knock that over. I can get rid of this and take all these parts, put them safely. I'm going to put these bulkheads in here. Okay. So I've got all these 4 little parts, plus the launch spring, the launch mechanism, the springs in the other kit yet, and a special missile tube there. This is the base. So what I do need to do now, in the last bit of the stream, is these are warped. You can see they're warped pretty badly. Is take a look at the other kits to see how badly warped those are. And if they're not quite as warped, I will trade them out. Otherwise, I'll need to work pretty hard to straighten these out before I can use them. These should all go in the box with all those other parts, but I'm not going to put them there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very careful again. Ooh, I figured it out. Okay. You will see in a second where that mystery hatch was. Okay, there's actually 4 decks. When I kept saying this one is the top of the submarine, they're not. Those are the top of the missile tubes. Okay, and that's this deck here. As this deck here, and that hatchway opens up somehow. You know, you reach in and open it. And that flat one that I wasn't sure about, that I put in the plastic bag, that's the one that attaches to the very top of the submarine. And that also has a hatch that opens up. So you can see that the missile tubes eventually have to be painted a really nice glossy yellow, as are these somehow to be painted beautifully circularly glossy yellow, while the rest of the deck is painted gray. All right, so these are all the parts, and this is backup kit number 1. This is a second authentic George Washington submarine kit. Okay. It is a slightly different color. As these things were molded, they were molded in different colors for reasons. And you can see this one that started, the torpedoes, they didn't bother painting it at all. Okay, that's what it looks like if you don't bother painting it at all. They just glued it together, and this whole section was so badly glued that it just fell apart. They started cementing missile tubes together, and you can see very badly done. The seams show. Propellers are broken. This kit is definitely not the one I was using. It's just a donor kit. So I'm going to take these bigger pieces out. And what I am looking for are these 2 decks that hopefully are not warped. Here's one of them. This is not, it's not very straight. Okay, it's kind of wavy, but what we're doing is we're comparing these 2. And you can see that the one in this kit, even though it's a little bit wavy, okay, is not bent quite as much. So we're going to swap this one out and go with that. This other one should be easy to find. It's huge. Okay, what we have here is this one's warped, but this one is warped more. This one's warped in the other direction. Okay, but again, it's a little wavy, but this one is really badly warped. So I'm going to trade out this part, okay, at this point, because it's easier to take out a little bit of a bend, maybe even by some judicious use of heat and whatever. But that's, again, you can just compare them, put them base to base. You can see that is. Hi, Dwarven Dad. Thank you for becoming a follower. I really appreciate it. You're watching Submarine Wednesday, and what I'm doing is the exciting task of rooting through pieces of submarine box of parts to find the parts for the next section of the submarine I'm working on. And over time, they become warped. And what I'm working on here is taking out a little warp on this one, as opposed to a gigantic warp on this one, hopefully. And then I've got a third kit. But this is my donor kit. I have yet a third one, and I'm going to look in the third one and see if they are yet even less warped. Because it's a lot easier to work with parts that are not warped. So this is backup kit number 1, which has contributed 2 pieces. And then this is backup kit number 3. This is actually a later model. It's an Ethan Allen, which is essentially identical, except for the only thing that isn't identical in the entire model is the very, very top of the missile launching section, the hatches, and in the George Washington, they open fore to aft, and in this, they open to the sides. But the internal parts are the same. And it actually came with a parts kit, which is really kind of cool because you can pay 5 cents, anywhere between 25 and 5 cents, to buy parts if they were broken or missing by using this order form. So I'm keeping the order form because it's really cool. And now what I'm doing is I've got these 2 parts from the backup sub number 1, which are slightly warped as opposed to very badly warped. And I'm going to be finding the same parts in this kit, which you can see is molded in quite a different color. Okay. This is kind of a tough call, because this is not exactly straight either. It's got little waviness, little wavy bends in it. But this is kind of bowed. You can see like that. And this is, I would say this is much straighter. Make sure that there aren't any flaws in the molding. So I'm going to trade this out. And then I'm going to look for this part. I wonder if it has that part. You can see I traded out before. This is, they're much straighter here. This one's not straight. don't have to look at the instructions. This one might not have the same. There it is. Nope, that's not it. This particular kit might not have the same deck structure. No, it doesn't. Okay, it's totally different. Instead of the roundy bits like this, okay, and on the tops, it's got these tube extensions that go all the way up to the top deck. So, fortunately, this one is pretty good, and I'll be able to use it. And this one, you know, it's a little wiggly. Let me check again before I make a final decision. Which of these two do I want? This has got quite a curve to it, but it might be a matter of just straightening it. And this is straighter, but it's got a wiggle. Okay, and that might be harder to fix. So I'm going to go back to this one and just say I'm going to just straighten out the curve, the bow, as opposed to this, which poses a challenge in that although it's straight, you can see it's wavy. If you can see that. It goes up and then down, and that's not helpful. So this is not as badly curved as the original kit, but it's going to require a little bit of work before I can use it. All right, so I'm done with that. You know I didn't do a flip. I will close with a flip because we're going to be ending a little bit early today. Okay, these are my donor kits, the extra parts for when the original kit of parts doesn't work. So I missed. Yeah, well, things really, you missed getting thrown off this morning. So I'll do a flip here. So because of the power outage, missed Friday and missed Monday. Didn't do streams those days because there wasn't any power or internet, especially the internet being off. So you can't stream without the internet, right? Yep, so we missed those 2 days and then came back today with Submarine Wednesday. And just as I was getting set up, saying, this is good, I'll get a bunch of stuff done, I knocked over my Dice and Dungeons mug, which was full of coffee and cream. That was a lot of fun. All these brushes and pens and stuff that are just sitting here, well, those got covered in milky coffee. All those, yep, those got to be individually washed. The coffee flowed under the microphone, underneath that little thing there that was totally coated, and I went through like a half a roll of paper towels, and I got started late. You know why? Because I was cleaning up an entire mug of coffee. Yeah, no kidding. It was, and then as I was cleaning up, I should have actually started the stream. I should have just let everybody see what was going on because it was pretty awful. Yeah, as I was cleaning up, I kept knocking the paper towels over. I knocked over palette. So I was really hesitant to do anything that involved doing anything today because, yeah, that was just not a good day. Not a good start to the day. But I managed to get, I got these tubes that are going to be used for the periscope and radio antenna, third coated, and I'll be highlighting the periscope controls. I got, well, let me just show you stuff. I got all the parts for the missile decks. I got all those now out and about, and hopefully I won't be dumping those anytime soon. Going to do I was hoping to get assembly done today, but I wasn't able to get assembly done today because the work I was going to do over the weekend didn't get done until today because of the power outages. But this deck, what was I thinking? Yeah. Okay. So I got the chairs installed, little itty bitty chairs, and I got plastic putty on the bottom here, and I need to put on a little bit more in a couple of spots. The plastic putty will be drying, and then on maybe before the next stream, maybe during the next stream, I'll be sanding all of these down and making a nice flat surface, and then painting the bottom of the deck. The bottom of the deck will be painted the ceiling color of the deck below it, which is the galley in the officer's wardroom. And here, yeah, table there, and this room here. So this stuff needs to set, and then it needs to, here it is, be sanded. And I shouldn't have put it on the paper towel because this stuff, I just, one of those things, just really not thinking very clearly because of the coffee explosion earlier today, which was, I don't know, it was just not good. It should have happened on camera. I should have started the stream before I knocked over the coffee, because I know that people like Who would have enjoyed that. So what I meant to do and I didn't do, because, it's just that kind of day, is I meant to take these two nails, which are the same as each other, and put them there and there, and set this on top of the nails so that the plastic putty didn't stick to the paper towel underneath. Anyway, I got this done, and it just needs to be sanded. I filled in the gap here between these two panels. That, once that's painted, that'll look okay. These missile tubes, these periscope tubes can go here now. Get the paint's dry. Can cap this up. And hopefully I can put things away without dropping them or breaking them or anything else. But this deck, all these parts are like essentially ready for assembly now once this is sanded on the bottom and painted. And if I have a chance to sand it before next Wednesday, that would be great, and I can maybe even paint it. And then on Wednesday, assuming I'm not dropping anything or spilling things or knocking things over, that's a big assumption. Assuming that it's not that kind of day, I should be able to assemble all of this stuff. All of these parts get put into the hull of the submarine all together at the same time, because they all interlock. And if I put like one part in, say I went ahead and just for example, say I did this, that I cemented this bulkhead onto the bottom here, kind of like the instructions say. If I were to do that and then discovered later that it was off a little bit, that it was side to side, or maybe not 90-degree angle perfect, then it wouldn't fit. And if it didn't fit, then I'd have to break it apart, sand it down, and yeah, unpleasantness. So I am instead not cementing anything together at all. I've test fit this and it fits together really well without cement, and get all of these parts into the hull together. Even the tricky bits, like getting these stairwells in. Like a stairwell goes here. The stairwell is supposed to attach there and come up through this hole here. Well, you know, if they don't match after this is cemented in, then it's a disaster. But what I can do is put the decks in and then use like contact cement or even rubber cement, okay, for the stair at the bottom, and make adjustments, hopefully, so that they work together. Anyway, yeah, and then there's another one. This goes here, and it's supposed to show up there. So part of what I'll be doing is spending a lot of time just dinking around with test fitting stuff, like these staircases that I haven't put in yet. Probably taking it apart and putting it together more than once before it all fits. But hopefully next Wednesday, all of this stuff will go into the hull of the submarine, and it'll look pretty impressive, because the whole first third of the submarine will be finished then, and it is the most detailed part of the whole sub. And then I can begin serious work on the missile deck. So that's the plan. I'm going to be ending early today, which means like about now, okay, because there are other things that need to be done related to recovering from the storm, and need to do that. But before I do that, I will make a plug for Dyson Dungeons. Dyson Dungeons being a group of family and friends that's been running an amazing D&D campaign now for over a year, that streams on Twitch with a live chat 2 o'clock on Sundays, and we're on Eastern Daylight Time. So if you're not on Eastern Daylight Time, adjust accordingly. That goes 3 Sundays a month, and I think we got here in the States, a Labor Day weekend coming up. There's going to be a rebroadcast of a special, Rootin' Tootin' special that was first aired last year about this time. It's hilarious. Watch it. It is really a lot of fun. And then we'll be resuming the campaign again after that. It's a great campaign, and that's what Dyson Dungeons is all about, is D&D. And for the most part, this stream has been about preparing dungeon tiles, like many of the ones that you're seeing here underneath me as the little scrolly thing goes by, and minifigs. See, there's one. That's a nice sort of warehouse that we did once before. And minifigs, like the things that Zoria, our changeling druid, turns into, like an elk. Okay? And also boss mobs, which are nasty and evil and try to kill us. So Mondays and Fridays are usually devoted to dungeon tiles and minifigs, Submarine Wednesday is a tradition that started, many, many months ago because I didn't have anything else, and I started working on kits like the ones I built when I was in 7th grade, like this one, official 1960s vintage Renwall cutaway submarine model, which is, I think, actually really going to take longer than the real submarine did. I think that is actually going to be the case when we come right down to it. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Just like Dwarven Dad did, thank you for becoming a follower. Become a sponsor, and if you really like what we're doing here, you can become a patron by going to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and that would be hugely welcome because it helps keep this all going. But as I said, I unfortunately have other things that I need to do to help catch up. Yep. I am pretty good at that. I will just drone on and on. Sometimes I'll drone on about really interesting things like 1960s cartoons or a marionette show or show tunes, not show tunes, but theme songs and things like that. But yeah, I'm hoping next Wednesday with a steady hand that I will get all of this stuff that you've been watching now for a month actually put into the submarine. It'll be a great relief for me to not have this box full of parts and have it installed and be able to move on to the rest of it. And someday the submarine will be done and I will find another model to build because I've got about 40 of them. When I retired, I thought I would be bored to death and have tons of time, and it turned out not to be the case. But I've got, everything from a 1957 Corvette convertible to a Star Trek Deep Space Nine to a plank-by-plank wooden model of the America yacht and everything in between. So if the submarine ever finishes, I've got plenty of other stuff to work with. Anyway, yes, thanks for watching. Sorry we're running, sorry about Friday and Monday, and sorry that we're having to cut this short today, but yeah, that power outage and everything just really messed things up. Things are pretty much back to normal now. No one got hurt, thankfully. Some people had. And our thoughts go out to all the people in Florida, and especially all the power line workers. They came from all over the country to help restore things here after the storm moved through Thursday. They worked all the way through up until now. I think they're finally finishing it just in time to head south to Florida to repair things after the hurricane, which is hitting there now. So thank you all of you who are doing that tremendous work. But I do need to go. Thanks again. See you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from more or less 10 until more or less 2 with Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. And on Sundays at 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, where you can join us in our campaign. And if you can't do it then, you can catch episodes on YouTube or just listen to them on podcasts. Thanks again. See you.